Okay, good morning.
Morning.
Let's get started. I believe we are up to Tzadik Zayin, Omer Aleph. And we were discussing at what point the bracha would go from Hagofen to Shahakoil. We had a machlokes between Acherim and the Chachamim in the case of Shmorim that you put water into to try to extract some wine, some flavor out of. What would you make a bracha? What would the bracha be on that water with the wine flavor? And the Gemara ended up saying is that if you put you add 3 cups of water into a bag of shmorim, and you get out three koshes of water. Clearly, all you have there is water. Everybody agrees. There, the bracha is a shahakah. If you put in 3 and you get out 4, there, everybody agrees you'd make a boyer priyagofen. The machlokes is if you put in 3 and got 3.5. Where Acherim would hold the bracha is boyer priyagofen, and the Chachamim holds the bracha would be shahakah. So, the Gemara will be yosy michdei midasai mipligi, which is right at the bottom of Tzadik Vav Amud Beis. So you tell me that there's a machlokes between the Chachamim and Acherim if you put in water, let's see, you put in 3 koshes of water and you got out 3.5 koshes, that's where you say there's a machlokes. But Zok Gemara, I don't think so. But Tanan we learned, going on to Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph, Hamatamid the nosan mayim b'mida u'matzah kadei midasai. If you in fact put water into shmorim, and when you extracted the water, you found the same amount of water that you put in, potter, you will be potter. And this is speaking about peiros of Meiser Sheni. That water won't be considered Meiser Sheni. Rather, that water is considered chulin. For Rabbi Yehuda mechayev, and Rabbi Yehuda is mechayev. Now, it seems to limit the machlokes only into a case where you found the same amount of water that you put in. So you know for sure there is no wine content here. So the Gemara makes a dik at kanai pligi ala b'chdei midasai. If you got more water out than you put in, it seems like everybody would be in agreement that, in fact, it is ma'aser sheni. Loi pligi. Zok the Gemara, no. Who adin that fiddle b'yosy mechdei midasai pligi. Really, even if it's yosy mechdei midasai, they would still argue, and the Rabbanan would still maintain that this is not wine. This is not ma'aser sheni. So, why did the Tana express their machlokes in a case where you only have the same amount of water that you put in? If the Tana could have showed a greater chiddush in the Rabbanan, that even if more water came out than what you put in, we still don't consider it ma'aser sheni. The reason why the case that the Tana decided to display the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim is lo diacha koichet Rabbi Yehuda to show the koich hachumra of Rabbi Yehuda that Rabbi Yehuda is even machmer if there's no more water than you originally put in. Now, the Rashbam explains, isn't the norm to want to highlight the chiddush of the heter? Dr. Rashbam, in fact, normally it is, but here there is no greater chiddush in heter, because as the Rashbam says, the mills of the pshita he departed. It's poshet, according to the Chachamim, that it would not be considered ma'aser sheni. The porter chamra b'maya tuba, just having a drop of wine that would be so diluted in so much water, bottle would be bottle anyway, and therefore v'leka chidish klal lashminon the pater rabbanan b'yoser. To tell us that the rabbanan pater, even if there's a little bit more liquid here than the water that you put in, that wouldn't even be a chiddush. So therefore, since there's no greater chiddush in the rabbanan, the Tana decided to use the case that would highlight a greater chiddush for Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, this is really where we left off yesterday, so now we'll start. Boy minei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak me Rav Chia bar Abba. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak asked the following shaila of Rav Chia bar Abba. And this was the shaila. Shmorim sheyesh behem tam yayin. Shmorim that have a tam yayin in it mahu. So Zok Rashbam, what is the shaila? Lebrichas hayayin. Now we know there's a machlokes between Acherim and the Rabbanan about the same case. That's what we learned yesterday. Zok Rashbam, Uvrai Shaloi have a shmila. These Amoraim that were clearing the shaila did not hear about that brisa. The Havishmila Hachi, the Havishmila, if they would have heard the brisa, Hachi Havel Memar. Halachik Acherim, Ayin Halachik Acherim. The shaila would have been who we pass like, because this was already a shaila discussed by Tanoim. So Amar Lei. So Rav Chiya bar Avin responded to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Mi Savers Chamaru. Well, you think this is called wine? Kiyua ba'almahu, it's just a juice, but it's definitely not wine. We definitely pass like the Rabbanon that this is not wine, and you make a chocolate. Toshus is a fascinating little stickle here. What would happen if you had shmorim in a barrel and you asked a goy to wash out that barrel for you? Normally it would be stam yain, and now everything's going to be also. So zok the Rashbam, zok the Toshus, mi sovers chamru kiyabamhu nikan hayur beinatam. About we don't even consider this wine at all. Therefore, Rabbeinu Tam said, "With the evet im rochatz akum chovish shel shmur yain." What if a goy washed out a barrel with shmur yain, even if you use hot water, so it would be absorbed into the walls of the barrel? The shuri, there's no problem here because there's no stam yain here. The lav chamru. If you don't have wine, you can't have stam wine. And the kiyua b'amli, it was just a liquid, and it's no concern at all. And therefore, the barrel does not have to be destroyed.
Yosy, you hear me?
If you have shmara of truma, rishon v'sheni, the first 2 times that you put water into it to absorb the taste of wine, v'sheni, and the second time, also, those have a status of wine, and therefore they're considered truma, and the Rishbam sticks in the osir l'zorim. And therefore, Yisrael will not be able to drink that water. Clearly, these are only chumras. We've already established that even the Rishon, even the first time you put water into Shmorim, that we pass like the Rabbanan, that it's kiyur ba'alma. But by Truma, there's an extra chumrah. That the first time you do it, naturally, the more you do it, the less flavor is going to be left to extract out of the Shmorim. So the first 2 rounds, it will be also to Yisrael midrabanan. Uvamatza kedei midasei ma'ir. It's speaking by matzah kedei midasei, and that is where the Chachamim and Acherim both agree that by chulin it's for sure a shahako niyabidvar. Ushlishi muter va'afilu yesh boy tam yain. Even if there's still some taste that you can detect in the water, it's still going to be muter. Rav Meir Eimer. Av shlishi b'noisen tam. Rav Meir is machmer, and he says if you can taste the taste of wine in the water, then it's going to be considered truma midrabanan, and it's usher for a zor to drink. Av shlishi usher im yesh boy noisen tam. Vishal meiser. What about meiser? And we're talking about specifically meiser sheni, because meiser sheni you cannot eat anywhere but in Yerushalayim. So the question is, are you allowed to drink this water out of Yerushalayim? It's not a discussion of meiser rishon, because there's no impact whatsoever as to whether or not the water is meiser rishon or not, because the Yisrael Azar is allowed to eat meiser rishon, and meiser rishon can be eaten anywhere. So b'shal meiser, not to be read b'shal meiser rishon like I did the first time. B'shal meiser comma rishon is usher. Only the first time you soak water, you soak the shmarim in water, will it be usher, and that water you'll have to take up to Yerushalayim to drink. But sheni mutter, and Rav Meir Eimer af sheni b'noisen tam. Even the sheni would be usher if you could taste the taste of wine in that water. V'shal hektish, and what if it was hektish? Shalishi usher. Even the 3rd round is usher, which is even more machmer than truma. Revi mutter. This almost sounds like levels of tuma. Rav Meir Eimer af revi b'noisen tam. Frank the Gemara or a mini, I'll ask you a brayso that's soiser what we just learned. Shall hektish loylam aser. So that's fair because our Mishnah just said, or our brayso just said, either shlishi aser and revi's mutter or revi b'noisen tam. And here it says hektish is loylam aser, and it also says the shal meiser loylam mutter. We learned meiser also. Rishon and sheni is also. Zok the Gemara kasher hektish kasher meiser. No problem. If you donated a barrel of oil and it was only going to be used, a barrel of wine, and it was only going to be used to sell and to buy other products, then only up to Shlishi or Revi. But if it's Kiddush Guf, if you donated wine, the wine was going to be used for Nesachim, then it's going to be usher no matter how many times you soak anything in. Now the question is, don't we have a rule that anything that could be brought on the Mizbeach, anything that can be brought on the Mizbeach, you're not allowed to give it to Beth Kabayis, right? You have to give something for its highest purpose. If you have a behemoth that's a tamim, you have to donate it as a carbon, not to be sold to buy bricks. So the simplest answer would be the true, but we're going to soon see there are some wines that for whatever reason, they're puzzle, they're not allowed to be used for Nesachim, so it must be those that the Gemara is referring to, where it says the wine had Kedusha Tov. What about Meiser? Because one brush says Meiser is never a problem. And on our first brush, it said Meiser either the third round or the fourth round. So tomorrow, Meiser, Lakasha, Kamba Meiser Valdai, Kamba Meiser Demai. If it's Meiser Demai, meaning even the Meiser that you took was only a suffix, only a chiv to bring only Meiser Midrabanon. So there, even the first time you mix water into it, we're not going to imakmer on that water. But if you had Meiser Sheni Daraisa, then it has those graduated rules of Rishon and Sheni Aser and Shlishi. It depends. Zok Gemara weiter. Amr Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Kederach she'amru le'inyan isurin, kach amru le'inyan echshterim. The same way we tell you how to classify if this is water or if this is wine, legabe, answering it. For instance, if it's truma or not, legabe those same halachas, we would decide whether or not it's wine or water, legabe being machter lekabel tum. We know a fruit, it will not become tamei unless it was touched by one of the 7 mashkim, right? So whether or not this is wine or water will be parallel to how we would paskin legabe truma and chulin. So by truma, it's considered wine up to the 3rd or 4th time. By chulin, it's only considered wine. It's not even considered wine the first time. So the question is, what's the difference if it's wine or if it's water? Either one is machshir, right? I don't understand. If it's water, achshura machshiri, either chamra achshura machshiri, which is exactly what the Yitzchak was asking, right? What's the difference? What it is if they're both equally machshir? And for the Gemara, we know that by wine, and we know that by water, and here there's a big machlokus for Rishbam and Tosfos. The Rishbam learns that we know when water falls on something, it says kiyitin mayim alkali, and we say kiyutan, meaning we learn that if something gets wet, it's only considered hoshul kabel tuma if that's something that you wanted, right? Only if that's something that you wanted. The other mashkim don't have that rule. So the nafkamina would be is if it got wet and you didn't know about it or you didn't want it. So shetamda b'mei geshamim. You know how you made this grape juice? You made it by using water, by using rainwater. And since it's rainwater, you don't necessarily want it. So that would be tala. If it's considered wine, it doesn't matter if you like it or not. But if it's considered water, if you didn't like it, then it would not be machshir kabel tomei. Frank Gemara, what do you mean you didn't want it? You're the one who took the water to mix it in with the grape, with the shmarim. You obviously wanted it. The moment you take the rainwater, you gather the rainwater into a keli to use to make this grape juice out of, achshavinu. So back to our same question, why would it make a difference if it's wine or water? Either mashka will be machshir wine. So the nismad me'elav. You know what happened? You had shmorim sitting in a barrel, and rainwater fell into it. So therefore, you never showed that you wanted it, and therefore, if you didn't want it, then there would make a huge nafkamina between whether or not this mashka has a status of wine, and then it will be machshir roim, or if it has a status of water, and then it would not be machshir. For the kanogid doesn't make a difference because you know what you're doing. You're taking it. You're taking this to use. So clearly, as you take the water out of the jug that rain fell into, you want that. Omar Papa, no, that's not what happened. Because if it's a Rishon and Sheni, if we're discussing the different, how many times it was done, you obviously must have taken it out. You didn't let the whole barrel fill up. That would all be Rishon. What must have happened was a couple of ounces fell into the jug. You took it out, and then the next 3 ounces, that's the second round. So the fact that you took out the first round and the second round, that shows clearly it's something that you want. You never touched anything. It was just sitting there. Rainwater went into it. And the reason why there were shifts is because it wasn't drained out by man, an animal drank it. So therefore, there's never any show that you were machshir it. Therefore, it would make enough to read that if it's water or if it's wine. Tosfos doesn't like the Rashbam. He doesn't like to say that this halacha that you had to have wanted it to hit the peiros, that only applies to water and not to wine. He holds it applies across the board. The Tosfos says the discussion here is rainwater, because by water you need two things. We'll actually look at the Tosfos inside for a second. The near lari, the big shama tarti. For rainwater, you would need two things. First, rain is not even considered a mashkin at all. So first you have to look at it as a mashkin. I plan to drink it, now it's a mashkin. And then although shar mashkin to go in mayim, that's not rainwater, or yain or shemen, kiva the nicha memela hein machshir. Once you're happy that they're machshir, even if you don't even think of them as a mashka, they're still machshir. So the difference in our sugya of whether or not it's water or wine is whether or not it's rainwater or wine. Put in rainwater or water. Because it's rainwater that needs an extra level, you have to be machshir for a mashkin, and that's the discussion of it. Amar Rav Zutra bar Tuvia Amar Rav. Kiddush Hayoim. You're not allowed to make kiddush. This is mamish the Yom the Yom. We say the Leblinis Rex again. We're about to go through a 3-day Yom. We'll be making kiddush a lot. So Einam Kiddush Hayoim. Ela el yayin harayu linasech al gabe hamizbech. Unless it's wine that it could be poured on the mizbeach, and what that means, what specific symptom that means, the Gemara is going to try to figure out. Lemutemai. I'm sorry. No. So there's a discussion. Oh, actually, there's a discussion about it. That will be part of the discussion. If we're trying to say that you cannot use grape juice to make Kiddush, the Gemara jumped right in to what you were suggesting. And grape juice you don't pour on the Mizbeach, Zok the Gemara, but it's not true. You shouldn't use for Nesachim grape juice. But Vim Heavy, if you use it b'di'evid, kosher. B'chivin Vim Heavy kosher, since b'di'evid it's kosher on the Mizbeach, and not for Kiddush, afilu l'chatchila nami. So anything that's b'di'evid kosher to be put on the Mizbeach, l'chatchila, you should be able to make Kiddush on. So it seems the Gemara is right away saying you could make Kiddush on grape juice. Okay. Tosfos just stops for a second. That's really, I don't have time to stop, but this is an interesting Tosfos. How come the Gemara didn't say Ilaim lemute mevushal? Because we use yaim mevushal. Zok Tosfos ein loichiach mikam the yaim mevushal kosher l'kiddush. Don't bring a raya from our Gemara that yaim mevushal must be kosher for kiddush, and that a mevarchin lavoy pregofen. Tosfos seems to say they're connected to each other. Midaloi kamar, because our Gemara didn't say Ilaim lemute mevushal. All it said was Ilaim lemute yaim megita. Midaloi kamar lemute yaim mevushal. Zok Tosfos, from the fact that our Gemara didn't use that as an option, the lav rahi. That's not a raya. Ta'afilu ein mekachin alav. Even if you wouldn't make kiddush on yain mevushal leimoti lemeimer lemuta yain mevushal, the Gemara couldn't have suggested here lemuta yain mevushal. Because we're going to soon see it's totally in whether or not you make a boy prigofen on it. and then you'd have to say you don't make a bar pigavin, which we don't hold like that. The body makes bar pigavin. Aval zok toisus yesh lahavi raya me yushtami d'shkolim udavi psachim the yain gomeru. You can bring a raya from a gemara in shkolim, yushtami in shkolim and avi psachim. That of course yain mevushel is yain gomer. Yomer hasam arba koisus shamru yoitzin the yain mevushel alma makachin the yain mevushel. The loik appears Rashi verash shekosh with the yain mevushel mavorchen love shahakol the shtani legreusa of ein laharkan. So we make a hagafin on yain mevushel, and we even use it for the arba koisus. I mean, they tell you better use not yain than mevushel, because Rashi learns that on yain mevushel you make a shahakol. Okay, so we're looking now for what the brisa means when the brisa says that whatever wine you wouldn't be able to bring on the mizbeach, such wine you would not be able to make kiddush on. You could squeeze out a cluster of grapes, which means clearly that's grape juice. If you would want to say that you cannot make kiddush on grape juice, so you see clearly from Rava that it's even mutter lechatchila alma de mekachin alav lechatchila. So therefore, ve'ela, maybe what the Brisa is trying to exclude from making kiddush on, ve'ela lemute mi pia umi shuleha. If you take from the top of the barrel, from the bottom, that the top there's some type of k'mochim, something rises to the top, some type of psoilus rises to the top. Shuleha, there's shmorim there. Those are not such good wine. There's the article say what these k'mochim are at the top of the barrel. There's k'mochim. Kemach means flour, and there's some type of film there, I guess. That's not desirable. Does he say what it is? Mold? Okay. So that's not kishmak, so that's why you can't use that. Okay. But Tani Rabchia, mi pia umi shuleha lo yovi, vim heavy kosher. So once again, we say that with the evid, that is mutter to be brought for nesachim, so we cannot be excluding that from making kiddush on. Ve'ela lemute yain kushi burk Listoin, Shal Martiv, Shal Tzavukim. So there's a whole list of wines that the Gemara is suggesting. Yain Kushi is black wine. Burk means it's white, but it's very white. It's of a poor quality. Hilsitin or Listoin, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's very sweet wine and very weak, like the type that I drink. Shal Martiv. Martiv means Stam Yain Shal Martiv Shlo Nivta. You don't know. You're taking a bottle that's unknown. You didn't check to see what type of wine it is. It might be bad. It might be kaises. It might be wine that's going bad. Okay? And shel tzamukim is raisin wine. So if you're going to suggest that all these you cannot use for nesachim, and therefore you can't make kiddush on them, but on all of these types of wines, we have a brisa that says, lo yavi from heavy kosher. So those can't be what we're talking about. The elalamute yayin kaisis. So we know what kaisis means. Rashi the Rishbam tells us who animkar bechanus upasalu the loyhavi sheichar loyroy liyay sheichar ki yayin migita the soifer miyal liyay sheichar. It's not even it's worse than grape juice because this is something that will never be wine. It won't make sheichus, I guess, because it's turning into vinegar. Mazuk if it's too watered down. The Rashbam says, okay, and Megula you can't because we're afraid maybe a nochash drank from it. Vishal shmorim and wine of shmorim, which was what we were talking about. Vishal reichayra, and it smells really bad, but it does have a tamiyai. So these are the things that it says in all of them. I'm sorry. So these are the things that maybe our brisa means to exclude from being able to use for kiddush. The Tanya v'chulun loyavi v'mhevi pasel lemute mai. So let's have a look. Which one of these things are being mai? Lemute kaisis, right? Because we have a whole list of wine. Lemute kaisis. How could you say that you can't use it for wine and therefore you don't? Why can't you use it for wine? Because it's not wine. And if it's not wine, you don't make a bracha of bar pig oven. To look at Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Tuban Levi. Did we not have a machloikas 2 days ago? During those 3 days that it's turning bad, is the bracha shahakoil or is the bracha bari pregofen? Remember, they had a machloikas as to whether or not you can use that to be mafresh trumas and maasros on the other things that you're selling. But all of these shilos are linked. If it's wine, then you could use it to be mafresh trumas and maasros, and you would make a bari pregofen, and you could use it for kiddush. And if it's not wine, then you can't use it for maasros. You can't make kiddush on it. You can't make a bari pregofen. So it doesn't make sense that we're saying something that's totally machlokes. Either the mute mazuk, and if it's referring to mazuk, aluya alya. To the contrary, when you dilute wine, it becomes better. So I'm Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chadina, moedim chachamim l'Rabbi Elazar, because shel bracha, she'ein mevarchen lov ad sheyitin lo toichem mayim. Pure wine is not even good wine. Wine always has to be diluted. So how can you suggest that that's something that you cannot make kiddush on? And ilamute megula. And if it's lemut megula, sakanahi. So zogt the respond vafilu beloy kiddush ashul shtoisa. It's much you can't make kiddush on it, but you're allowed to drink. You're not allowed to drink it at all. It might have venom inside. And ilamute shall shmarim. And if it's to tell you that it's talking about the water that you soaked in shmarim, well, we just went through the details of that yesterday. Hechidami either ramatil savasa arba. Everybody agrees that that's chamer ma'al. And either Ramatilsa, the Asa Tilsa, Palga, which is where there's a machlokes, that's Pluti the Rabban and Bechermi. So Ella, all the brisa could possibly mean, or is it a brisa or is it a member of the Gemara? All it can mean Rab. It's Rab who said it. So what Rab must have meant was yain sherei chera. All he meant to say was that you should not be making kiddush on wine that smells bad. V'boyisema. And somewhere the Rashbam says, I can't find it now. It could have had a bad smell because maybe the barrel may have been good wine, but it was in a bad barrel, and could be that's what made it smell, but it's still good wine. Okay, or maybe it's lemute megula. Maybe it's also to say that yain megula you cannot make kiddush on. We said stamazoy it's also to drink. Forget kiddush, you're not allowed to drink it at all. So to Gemara even though you strained it, Rab Nechemia holds that the venom of a snake will not be diluted in the water. And there's no way you could strain it out. Rather, it remains together at the top. So if you would strain it, you would be able to remove all of the venom, and therefore you would be able to drink water that was megula, but nevertheless, not appropriate to make kiddush on. Nevertheless, even though you're allowed to drink it, because you've removed the venom from it, it's just not a nice way to bring a carbon. Because Baruch was telling them you're bringing bad things on the Mizbeach. Would you serve this up to the king? Would you serve this up to royalty? If you were serving this to a person, would he be happy with that? If you serve this up to the royalty to want to impress him, you think you're going to turn him on and you're going to get him angry. In other words, it's not paslik that this should be brought as a carbon, and therefore you shouldn't use this for kiddush. So at the end of the day, the two things that Rav meant to say you're not allowed to use for kiddush because you're not allowed to use them for nesachim is yain sherei chera and wine that had venom in it that was then strained. Vayimner of Kahana Chamud Rav Misharsha Mirov. So the son-in-law of Rav Misharsha, Chamuz, the father-in-law or the son-in-law? So the father-in-law of Rav Misharsha asked the Shaila of Rabbi, Chamar Chavari on Mah. What if it was white? It was very white. As the Rashbam says, Nira be'ena da'ayin yayin burk. This is the yayin burk, the Tanya le'il lo yavi v'mevi kosher. It must be uvray shalo shmila. If he's asking a Shaila, something that's listed in the first Brisa, he must not have heard of this Brisa. Now, al teri yayin kiyas adem. In other words, it has to be read, and therefore it's kiyas adem shemishakar yoyser midai. Makes you more drunk that you shouldn't drink it. But alma yayin edom koydem l'nesachim. The shecher ksivahu. You're supposed to use red wine for nesachim. Tosfos argues and says that it's not what we were discussing earlier. Pirush Rash the chiyura and hani burk below shemile brayse delil the gatani burk layoviv maybe cut. That's what Rashbam learns. The sharper shmila he maybe did hear of it. The chivurion gurumi burk, and maybe his shaila wasn't on yain burk. It was on something that was even worse than that. The chiyuran lavan yosy midai. It's very white, and that makes it even worse. It's a little bit white. The dovik sas ladbumus, it does have a pink tinge. L'kacha may be kosher, but this won't be mutter at all. Probably not, because we know that's considered wine. I don't know the different shades, but I guess if you know your wines, you look, hold up the glass and you see how it refracts the light. I don't know these things. Zok Gemara weiter. Kankanim b'shoring. Remember, we said that you also have to accept a certain amount of damaged kankanim if you're buying a whole lot of them. Zok Gemara Tana pitzois nois umegufrois. What was the condition of these damaged jugs that you have to accept? Dr. Ishbam, Pitrois, the Amran, the Mekablim, Eser, the Kuf, Einon Shvuris, Ruris Mam. You don't have to mamish accept completely broken jugs. That's not what this means. Dimkain, Afilachzol Mekablim. Why would someone accept even one broken jug? Illinois, Kishar, Kadeir, Shabasharan. They were nice, like other pots in Sharon, Megufrois, Begufers. And they're also, they would use sulfur on them for blacking them a little bit. What did that do? The gulfers soisim is a shaver and machaber. So I guess there were little cracks in it, and when you put it into sulfur, it caused it to bond together a little bit. And they could still be used. They won't last as long, but right now they're still going to hold whatever they need to hold. Oil will have a shur and a gamri, since they're not totally broken, they're just of a lower quality. Mekabel alav yud lukuf. What if you sell wine to your friend and it became vinegar? The moicher is not chai. Now this sounds like we're stepping into a minefield because we just discussed it earlier. If it was the up to 3 days, and here just something. It just says something very generally. So the Rishbam tells us the Mishas Mechir Yain Ham, but the Rishbam doesn't share with us any more detail because that's the Gemara is going to get into. What if this person, all of his wine would go bad? He had a problem with his process, something's going on, but his wine goes bad. So then that raised a mekach tos. Then it's a mekach tos. It didn't just go bad. It was bad from day one because all of your wine goes bad. What if the Moicha says, I'm selling you not stam wine, I'm selling you yain mevusa. I'm selling you wine that's really good, as the Rashbam speaks out, sheyiskayim, kederech hamiskayim, it's going to last a long time, then chayiv lahamad adhu atzeres. So we're talking about Sukkot time, he's selling wine, it has to last until Shavuos. Yain mevusam is really good wine that's going to be very long last, so that's like a 6-month warranty. As Rishbam says, out of Tzeres, it's not a year warranty, it's just until Shavuos. The hot summer days will turn even Yain Mevusam. What about if he said Yashon? If he says Yashon, so then Mishal Ishtakat, he has to give him wine from last year's crop because that's what Yain Yashon means. And Miyushan, if he says I'm selling you wine that's Miyushan, it's Mishal Gimel Shanim, that would have to be from 2 years ago. So it's much more aged. Amar Rabbi Yoshua Loi Shanu. This that the first line in our Mishnah said, Einoi Chayiv Ba'ach Yusoi, that's not all the time. That's Elo B'kan Kanim de Lekeya. Avo B'kan Kanim de Moicher. But if the jugs belong to the Moicher, Amaled Lekeya can take the jugs with the wine back, and you can say Ha Chamrach V'ha Kan Kanim. It's all yours. So now it's already more noita to what we learned earlier, that in the Kankanim Lekeach, all bets are off. Your Kankanim could have messed them up. It's only an issue, I only have to give some type of warranty by Kankanim Demoicher. Now, it doesn't discuss the 3-day issue. So that we'll have to see. So let's see what the Rashbam says. Elo bekankanim Lekeach, Shekibel HaLekeach Hayayin B'chavi Yosef. So the wine was immediately transferred into the barrels of the Lekeach. The reason why there's no warranty is because maybe the kelim of the lekeach caused them to go bad. Umi, however, say for the katani v'im yadua, there hasam lekel meimer clear lekeach karma. If all of the wine in this moicha goes bad, then you're not going to point to the kelim lekeach. You'll point to wine that had a problem in it, and that's adi shayayin ragel. We know that his wine goes bad. Aval bekankanim demoicher zok dereshbam motzi amar lekeach. Lekeach could say afilu lizman meruba. So this clearly is not going like the sugya we learned earlier, that the moicher is only warranting the wine for 3 days. Here, we're saying if you bought it in the kakam the moicher, even for a long time, I can give it back and I can say hachamrech v'akan kanach. The vada yenach v'kelecha garmu. It's your system. I don't know if it's your wine, if it's your barrel, but it's your problem. You gave me something faulty. The svir lay. Right now, Rabbi Yosy Bechanina holds the b'yamois habotzir have a yain mekulkul kfar. Right away, this wine must have been bad from day one. If it went bad now, 3 months later, it was really bad from day one. But you can't tell that this is not a good crop until they start fermenting. If it was good, it would have stayed wine. If it turned to be vinegar, it was always vinegar. What about Rav, who told us that it's held in 3 days? Our sugya seems to be totally ignoring this 3-day warranty. He will argue on Rabbi Yosy Bechanina, and the way he will understand our Mishnah, he'll learn that our Mishnah is speaking within 3 days, and it's kankanim to lekeach. So if it's kankanim to lekeach within 3 days, there's no warranty at all. If it's kankanim to moicher, there will be a 3-day warranty, or it could be speaking by kankanim to moicher, and that's where there's no warranty. So we could put our ideas of Rav aside now, because now we're looking at the sugya from Rabbi Yosy Bechanina's perspective, who holds that a moicher has to give more than a 3-day warranty, because he holds wine that goes bad was bad from the beginning. Let's say it was kankanim the moicher. So Rabbi Yosy Bechanina, you want to claim that it's almost like a lifetime warranty. Why? Let the moicher say, sure, they went bad, but had you drank it right away, it would have been good. Who said I was selling you the wine for long-term storage? I was selling you the wine. I thought you were going to use it right away. Right away, you would never have that. You would never have had an issue. We're talking about a case in our Mishnah. Now we're reading so much into our Mishnah. Now the Mishnah is starting to get heavy. Now the Mishnah is also speaking in a case where the moicher said, I'm selling you this wine for long-term cooking use. So therefore, I no longer have a taida that you should have used it right away. Frank Gemara, why would you scratch your ear like this if you could scratch your ear like this? Umay duchte, Rabbi Yosy Bechanina, lo ukma lemasnisen bekankanim d'lakeh. Rabbi Yosy Bechanina starts off by saying, we're speaking bekankanim d'lakeh, and only there is there no warranty. And then he had to say that where is there a warranty about kankanim the moicher or the amal the mikveh? Why couldn't he learn the Mishnah so much simpler? Look with kankanim the moicher. Say that we're speaking kankanim the moicher, and the reason why is because the udalam the mikveh. So normally, why if a moicher sells even kankanim the moicher? Why is there no warranty? Because it's speaking where he didn't say mikveh. Like the Mishnah doesn't mention anything. Meaning, if you would have used it right away, it would be good. The fact that you decide to leave it on your shelf for a long time, that's not the condition under which I sold it to you. Even if it was kankanim the moicher, why is it that there's no warranty? Right? Why could you? I'm saying no. By kankanim the moicher, he said there's no warranty. There's no warranty by kankanim the moicher. There's a lifetime warranty by kankanim the moicher. But Rabbi Yosy Bechanina wants to say that by kankanim the moicher there's a lifetime warranty, and I can always give it back. I understand. I understand that, but that's the whole point. He's learning that a moicher yain chaveroi, where there's no warranty is only if it's kankanim l'keach. Like kankanim the moicher, there is a warranty. Why should you say that? Say by kankanim the moicher, there's also no warranty. Why did the Mishnah says tam? You're stelling it on like a kind of lekech. Why? Say it could be side the lekech, side the moicher, because it's speaking where he just said to drink, not to limit. Why do you have to make a nukim to the Mishnah? I know, but he made a nukim to the Mishnah. Why did he make a nukim to the Mishnah that the Mishnah is only speaking about the kind of lekech? It doesn't say that in the Mishnah. It just says a moicher yain chaver stam. So he could have learned that the case of the Mishnah was no matter what, whether it's in the kankanim lekech or whether it's in the kankanim lekech, either way, in the kankanim lekech, because he can claim your kalim did it, and in the kankanim lekech he can say because you should have used it right away. He's only forced to say that it's only speaking by kankanim the lekech because it's speaking where he said the mikveh. But why do you have to read that into the Mishnah? Why don't you read the Mishnah simple? Any case when you sold wine, if you didn't say the mikveh, the mikpah, it's actually the mikpah. If you didn't say the mikpah, automatically there's no warranty. So Amarav Mashnisim Tikis. Actually, Rabbi Yosef Bechanina analyzed the Mishnah itself, and there's something mineu bay in the Mishnah that told him that he has to learn it's only speaking by lekeach and reset the mikveh. Why? The Katani, the next case of the Mishnah was im yadua sheyeinei machmitz. If he knows, if it is known that this moicher's wine goes bad a lot, then I raise a mekachos. And on the second half of the Mishnah, Rabbi Yosef Bechanina had a problem, and this is what his kasha was. Amai leimalei loy boilach l'shiyuye. Even if my wine is known to go bad, but it goes bad after some time, so why can't I say you should have used it right away? The wine that I sell is for immediate use. You should have checked the best before date on the label. You decided to keep it longer. I'm not responsible. Even if my wine is faulty from day one. It's not faulty. It just means it's wine that has to be consumed right away. It's because of the Sefer of the Mishnah where it has to be speaking, where when the Moicher sold it, he told them this will last you a very long time. The best before date was 10 years in the future. So that he has to learn like that. Otherwise, Rabbi Yosef Bechanina wouldn't understand why, even if it's Yadua Shein Machmitz, why would that be a problem? It must be because he sold it to them for long term. Once we know he sold it for long term, now he's forced to say that Amoich Yain Chaver V'Hikmitz is in the Kelim of the Lekeach. Because if it was in the Kelim of the Moicher, he would have been liable because he sold it to them for long term. Shema Mina. Zok the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef Bechanina argues on Rabbi Chiya bar Yosef. Upliga de Rabbi Chiya bar Yosef. Rabbi Chiya bar Yosef, Chamra Mazla de Morei Garim. You know what makes wine go bad? The Maisim Toivim or Maisim Royim of the owner, like we attributed to Shmuel a couple of days ago. Right? Shmuel a couple of days ago, we said, Rabbi Chiya bar Yosef. The Afki Ayayin Boyeg Gever Yoher. Wine will also be boyeg. So let's look at this pasuk because the Gemara is going to focus on this pasuk a little bit. So let's look at this pasuk. We'll look at the pasuk, the pshat of the pasuk, and then we'll see how the Gemara dashes. The Av Ki Hayayin Boyeg Gvarya here. This was talking about Nebuchadnezzar and his descendants. How you just like wine makes you go vild, or sorry, what yayin does is sometimes yayin could be going bad. So it looks like wine, but it's really chaymetz. So yayin could fool you. That's what a gever yor is. He acts like he's some chosh of a mensch, but he's really a piece of trash, right? And therefore, Kiddush Baruch was telling Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar, "V'lo yinbe asher hirv kishoyel nafshay." You're not going to dwell. You're not going to be able to have a permanent dwelling. You know, your machos will not be in the sky. You, even though you're such a baltaiva, you grab like moves, everything you grab for yourself. So here, you like a sha'ol, you just grabbed and grabbed whatever taiva you wanted, you grabbed. Vika moves. It's like moves, meaning just like the Malach HaMoves was never satisfied with anything that the Malach HaMoves got. So too, he wanted more and more taiva. He was never ever satiated. And he never becomes satisfied. But yes, all the goyim are gathered around you. Okay, so that's what the pasuk was talking about the downfall, the nevuah of the downfall of Nebuchadnezzar. But we're using it to tell us that that wine sometimes could turn bad based on the basel of the owner. If somebody tries to act through, he won't even be respected by his own family. Right? And everyone knows the famous story. The famous story, the woman who was sitting shiva for her husband. And she said, I learned two things. One, I was sitting shiva for my husband. The first thing I learned is that chakras takes longer than 15 minutes. And the second thing I learned is that Meyer only takes 15 minutes. So a woman knows who her husband really is, a father knows who their father really is. Because the husband is female. But at home, they know who you are, and you lose respect. And then our even in his own abode, he will not be respected even in his own home if a house is built. Tell him his God, the talus shall talmud chochem. Someone who dresses like a talmud chochem. The Rishbam refers back to a Gemara we learned that says the derech of a is to wear a bag that goes down to his ankle, covers his feet, right? So if you dress like a talmud chochem and you're not, you have to place a megudel to the ein talmud chochem. They don't even let him come into a Kadosh Baruch Hu's mechita. Lost loboy, ksevachim loy nova, ksevachim of the vei kochecha, so he won't be allowed in the vei kochecha. I had a friend who was actually my roommate in yeshiva who came to me once to collect money, and he was wearing a farah, and he was a oozing guy that he got under my skin. And I told him, who the fuck do you think you are? And he starts coming back. Amaram, hi man. Maybe I'll get thrown off of YouTube for that one. Amaram, I remember saying it. He deserved it. Let me tell you. Amaram, he was such a Baldiver that I held that if you hadn't seen that it was such a problem that you were automatically destroying that dog. That's why he was like, he was beyond it. So he told me, he says, it's funny you say that because I've been going around to all the cities in North America to try to get people to come to my yeshiva and know where yeshivas are sending me. So temporarily help me. Oh, so I gave him money. I said, as long as you have a koil, I have to give you. The moment you get your first book, stop coming to me. So Baruch Hashem is the next koil. Someone sells a barrel of wine to a chayim. Now this really sounds like he sold it. Jewish Bamler does not say. Jewish Bamler, this is on concession. It's called concession. On consignment. On consignment. Now Tosh doesn't like Jewish Bam's shop. We'll get to that in a minute. But one of the main reasons why Tosh doesn't like Jewish Bam's shop is it says I have the Zobin. Zobin doesn't sound like consignment. Jewish Bamler is consignment. Adaita l'sevuya. That they were going to sell. He was going to sell it. And he over a long period of time. The Takif Palga Oyatilsa, and when it was halfway sold or a third of the way sold, the wine went back. So who now? Whose wine is it? Who gets left holding the bag? So Dino, the Makabal, of course, it always belonged to the owner. It was on consignment. So of course, the owner has to accept the full loss.
How do you categorize consignment? It's a sale on Al Tanai?
No,
it's a Mecher Al Tanai. Yes, it is. It's a Mecher. I'm selling it to you, and when you sell it, you'll pay me.
That's not what it is. I'm not selling it to you. You're providing a service to me, and I'm going to give you a commission.
Yeah, but if he does sell it, yeah, but it's a sale Al Tanai.
So let's see the Rishbam inside. Let's see the Rishbam inside. I'm on the Mazal Chavita Kamal Chavidi. Moshe Chavita Chavidi. So that the Chavani will sell my wine in his store, the Chavani will make some profit. The Balabais only gets his money after the Chavani sells it,
right?
Proceeds come in. The wine remains permanently in the Rishus of the owner until it gets sold to the customer. The Chavani is like a paid employee, but he's being paid commission, but he's a paid employee, he has no ownership interest in this wine at all. Therefore, the data, in the middle of the barrel, before it was fully sold, the Makabal Balabais collapsed. Of course, the owner gets the full loss. Of course, speaking where there was no fee involved, the Hainu, Tevni, the Yad, the Shlichusoi, the Mefarish Vazo. Okay, we'll stop over here. And
Base is Shomer Sachar.
we're
That's
doing good, right? We got a little bit ahead. How much ahead did we get? We got a whole lot ahead.
no.
We got a half a. We got a. Yeah.
I asked you, yes.